This Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it, and the only match Robbie E. finds on Tinder will be with the woman at the unemployment office. Kind of a weird Impact this week, in that I liked it, but at the same time I was kind of unexcited by it. There were some things here that just didn't grab me. Padding that wasn't really necessary, or pandering to the audience that I frankly could have done without. Did I think this was a bad Impact? No. But I didn't think it was incredibly interesting either. The show starts with Angle talking about the Rude EY situation from last week. This brings out Team MVP, and MVP goes off on the New York fans for no particular reason, which brings out Tommy Dreamer, even though he's supposed to be gone now. And why? Because they're pandering to the New York fans. And I just don't see why that's needed at this point. If you didn't hook these people with Dixie Carter going through a table, continuing to send Dreamer out there isn't going to make a difference. And that segues into a random Dreamer-Lashley street fight of all things that honestly felt entirely pointless. Not that it was an awful match or anything, but why are we wasting time on this when the main event that you were hyping up as a big damn deal could have used a few extra minutes or some promos beforehand? Not to be a dick or anything, but this just felt like a bunch of filler that the show really did not need. All due respect to Tommy, but when MVP said, "So, Tommy Dreamer, he's still around?" I was asking myself that same question.
It's not the 90s anymore and nobody wants to see you in spandex.
I kind of felt the same way about this Rude EY promo segment. And I don't like saying that because the promos from both guys were solid here, and they had the right idea, building up this #1 contenders match for next week. But it felt like they spent too long just recapping everything that happened last week and explaining the situation that was already more than obvious to anyone who's ever seen a wrestling show before. And then they just go on and on about how much they respect each other and whatnot, which there's nothing wrong with, but at the same time, it's not very interesting. You could stand to add a little bit of tension between these guys. I mean, yeah, they're both faces, but that doesn't mean they have to be best buddies when there's a title match on the line that they both want. Maybe I'm biased, because I really don't think Eric Young should be in this position again, reference the ratings during his world title reign, but I felt like this segment could have been done just as well, if not better, in less time than they gave it.
And that's the fishing line, 'cause Shark Boy said so.
You know, this EC3 Rhino alliance imploded so quickly, I almost wonder why they even bothered doing it. Was this another case of just pandering to New York by putting an ECW guy in the ring? Because that's feeling more and more transparent as the weeks go by. The match ends as it should, with Rhino getting his ass kicked. I confess I didn't care so much about that part. Because, let's be honest, the hardcore American icon of wrestling, EC3, gave Rhino an important job to do, and he failed. So now an example must be made.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
So that part was a foregone conclusion. I wasn't too engaged. But then we have the stuff with EC3 and Spud. EC3's getting really vicious. Even Spud thinks he's going too far. And yes, that was a Spud chant you heard for a minute there. This is interesting. This has potential. But, oh man, I really hope they don't break these two up. I can see how they might want to start pushing EC3 as a more serious character on his own now, but damn it, him and Spud are way too good together to break up. Those guys are like a comedy dream team, and with Bad Influence gone now, you need something like that. Don't you do it, TNA. Don't you do it. Why exactly was a #1 contenders knockout match necessary? Especially with these two. Taryn's the one who's been teasing the big rubber match with Gale, and they've been delaying that for weeks. Meanwhile, Madison hasn't been near the title picture in months. Why not just give Taryn the match that she already had before the beautiful people stuck their noses in for no damn reason? The match was okay, but a little sloppy. I think Taryn still has some ring rust to work off, and the chemistry she has with Gail doesn't seem to extend to Madison, but it wasn't really bad. Might have been worse under different circumstances, but I continue to infinitely prefer Madison Rayne as a babyface. Her character is much less irritating, her matches are a lot better this way, and as long as TNA don't do anything stupid like turn her heel again, I think I can finally, at long last, put the issues with Madison Rayne behind me and look forward to the future. We had an X Division 6-man tag, and I don't have a lot to say about this. Another fun, exciting match from the X Division, though we're still not getting much in the way of story development. Low-Key still has Samoa Joe in his sights and wants another shot at him. That's cool with me, but I'd like it if we could get some context for this. Show us what this means to both of them. The matches are appreciated, but they'd mean more with something behind them. Doesn't have to be a lot, just give a bit more substance to it than just one guy having the title and another guy wanting the title, that's all. Now this is what I'm talking about. Here's a cool storyline. James Storm and Sonata. I don't know what the nature of their relationship is exactly, but Storm branding himself as a leader of people who need some kind of rebirth has possibilities, especially if you start adding other guys to this who might also need to be repackaged. Storm is selling this great. That Sonata's rebirth doesn't include new music is head-scratching, but I like the angle so far. Him and Aries always have good matches, and this was no different. It looks like they may be building to a match with Sonata and the Great Muta at Bound for Glory, perhaps? Hopefully with Storm involved somehow. That's cool with me. No complaints yet. Okay, the debut of Chris Melendez. Let me say this. I have nothing but respect for our armed forces. The men and women who defend our country, I could never do what they do. They're up here. The rest of us, we're down here. Having said that, yeah, I'm gonna be that guy. No, hey, come on now, just hear me out for a second. TNA make this whole big production about Melendez joining the roster, and it's worth pointing out that TNA have had ex-military talents on their roster before and never done this. Crimson, Gunner, Anderson, even Jesse Neal. But Chris Melendez gets this big, huge introduction when, as far as I know, he hasn't done a thing in wrestling yet. And why? For the publicity. That's the only reason why this happened. Today Show, USA Today, publications all over the country have been covering the news story of TNA signing the one-legged war hero. They weren't even trying to deny this. It most likely has very little to do with whatever talent he may or may not have. They signed him for the PR he'd bring in at a time when they desperately need all the PR they can get, and it worked. I don't begrudge the man anything. I'm just saying that's obviously why this was done, and anyone who says different is fooling themselves. Now, my opinion of Chris Melendez, I really don't have one. I don't know if he can wrestle. I've never seen him perform, never seen him do anything. If he can work decently, then fine. He'd be a great ambassador for the company. I just hope that TNA will approach this situation delicately and be careful with how they use him, lest resentment possibly develop that he may be getting pushed for the wrong reasons. I feel like a lot of people are going to overrate the main event. The first match of the Wolves Hardys 3D series. It was a really good main event. I don't think it was the match of the year, and it was a few minutes shorter than it should have been, thank you very much, Tommy Dreamer, but it was a lot of fun, and I expect these guys will top that performance in the next one. In the meantime, I hope TNA are doing everything in their power to get Bully Ray back for at least one more match so they can finish this thing off properly. Yes! I'm sure I sounded really critical here, but I didn't hate this Impact, I really didn't. It's just that things happened to keep me from loving it. There were a bunch of things that could have been tightened up or just cut entirely, and the pandering, be it to the New York fans or to the news media, was really transparent at times. Certainly not a bad show, the wrestling continues to be good, but from a creative standpoint it felt like the writers were slacking off a little bit this week.